So this is actually my second attempt at doing this, and my first time doing it with somebody that I don't actually know really well. I have no idea what order these are all going to be put out in, uh, so whatever. My goal with any of this stuff is just to try and be as kind of real and human as possible with this. So there's going to be a lot of flaws and fuck ups and all that shit. Um, this is Anton Cancre, who I met because he is published by Raw Dog Screaming Press, right?
No, I haven't been
Okay.
published by them.
You're at
I've
least in
done a
the
lot of
same, you're in the
reviews for
same
them and
circuit.
kind of wander in those circles, but
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I just know you from those circles then. My mistake. With writing through Donna does horror stuff, I do my whatever graphic novel stuff through them. And so just kind of in the course of all of that stuff, you meet all these people. And so when I put a call out online to try and find people that would be interested in this, he was one of the people that responded because he's talking about um, a job and a world that is pretty much everything for me is a world away from my experience, which is a married dude living in the middle of the woods is with a studio, you know. So like he works in the real world. And but before we get to that, this whole show is about passions and the things that really like and I keep using this example, but it's the thing that makes you stop and go, right, okay, so here's how this works, because it's the thing that really keeps you going. It's not the thing that pays you necessarily. I mean, can be, but it's the thing that just lives in the back of your head constantly, where you're thinking about, I wonder if I could do this or that, because it's just for some reason it got its hooks in you. Uh, I'm still figuring out my interview technique with all of this, so I'm starting it with one that I really enjoyed with Nathan, which was what was the if you can think about like going back to being a kid. Um, What was the first thing that you remember that like really got its hooks in you and like stayed with you? Because I mean, for kids, you know, everything happens much faster. So the fact that you find anything that really sticks with you for, even 6 months or a year, it's pretty remarkable.
the first thing I really remember heavily like that was The Hobbit.
Oh yeah.
That was, and I've come to find so many people. That's when I was a kid. That was the bedtime story, uh, and I found so many people, like so many other people that I know that apparently that's I guess just that generation of people.
Yeah,
For
sure.
some reason, people put down Dr. Seuss and started picking up Tolkien and reading The Hobbit to their kids. So there's this fairly for a bedtime story long book that was just read in pieces. But my first off, my mom sitting down with me. Both my parents were working class people. Both of them had full time jobs. Even from a really young age, there was a chunk of time after coming home from school where my sister was having to like run things around there, and she's only like 3 years older than me. That crap that used to go on in that chunk of time that we didn't think anything of, and now the look on people's faces if you said that their 7-year-old kid was taking care of the house for like
Oh,
three
gee, that's what I was
hours.
doing. Shit. I mean, I
Yeah,
was totally a latchkey kid from I don't know however old you are in second grade.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
so yeah, like that's so it's a weird thing to think of, but it was just normal.
Mm,
Um, and that so first off, time with them was always sparing. I don't remember much in the way of time with my dad, but that's fine. He doesn't deserve it anyways. But my like that's the first core memory of things with my mom was that like sitting down absorbing this story and not really because it was in these chunks apart from each other. I don't know how
mm.
much like I understood the first time going through, but like it stayed very heavily lodged in me. Um and even like when those the seven I think they were from the 70s, either 70s or early 80s cartoon versions came out
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
had that very specific, and I can never remember the artist, but like there was some like that time period, like everything was done in that exact same art style.
Yeah,
um
the guy who did the Hobbit animated Hobbit film had a very specific style, like the way that Gollum is done with he kind of looks like a salamander, you know?
Yeah, that's I was very disappointed when the movies came out and he was so like rail thin and everything. Like, but that's not what Gollum looks like. Let's go back to let me show you what he because that was just wasn't my memory of
Mhm.
Gollum. Like they did fine with it, but it wasn't mine. It's like when I first like stumbled upon that as a kid, I about crapped myself because I can get this thing all together and kind of like put together all that was going on in the story,
Right, right.
and then still would have the ability to like revisit some of those pieces with my mom, and so that was huge to me. And then I don't think I like sat down and read it like on my own
Mhm.
until I was mid teens,
Right,
like
right.
in my mid teens. So it was a long ass time later, and still like that it still was fireworks going
Hmm.
off in my head, um and like I still feel that way about it. I personally feel the Lord of the Rings itself is kind of a slog, but the Hobbit just
Yeah, yeah,
pops.
yeah, yeah.
It like I really like it's a fun quick story. I like it's got a lot of personality.
Hmm.
Like I really I still have a huge love for that.
It's funny. I think I just from doing music, I think a lot about um I don't there's got to be a word for it, but sonic palettes is the best thing I can think of. And I think that there's, the example I use is like, so for me in Star Wars, the sounds of Star Wars, um, the way the lightsaber sounds, the way the communication between the ships, the vocal, just the way that sounds, just to me, it's a very specific, very hooked in sort of sound. And whereas people that are just a little bit younger than I am, like industrial bands like Cyanotic or whatever, their reference point for sound is Terminator or Aliens. And so it's just offset by just a few years, but you can hear just slight differences, even if we're using, almost similar palettes, they're still just the way they're pushed together. And when I think about that movie, you know, uh, that Misty Mountain song at the beginning, I think there's an entire generation of us who the moment you hear something that's in that vein of Misty Mountains, like immediately drop into this kind of dark, somber, yes, adventure time, yes, and I think that's very cool. Or even the washing dishes song, smash the plates and stuff. But yeah, it's neat how that whole thing works. Now, did you see when Bakshi did the Lord of the Rings, which was the, incredibly disappointing because it wasn't the whole fucking thing, but it was the first book and the second book, and then no third book, and then the guy
I
who did The Hobbit did the third one. There's an animated version of Return of the King that was
so I
done by the
don't
guy who did The Hobbit.
Yeah, I don't remember which one I saw.
Yeah.
I know that there was some point in like late 90s that
Hmm.
a video store near me, I just happened to notice that they had, first off, they had that version of The Hobbit. I was like, holy
Hmm.
shit. And then they had those. I didn't even know they fucking did this. So
Oh yeah.
I know that I watched them then,
Hmm.
but I don't know how much, like, I don't know how much of it was.
Right, right.
I, yeah, that's,
So how do you feel that falling into the world of the Hobbit, and it's cool because I got into Lord of the Rings because I got sick, and my mother read me all of it throughout the course of me being sick. So I very much understand where you're coming from with that, and moms are just cool like that. Um, how do you feel that carried over into later into things that you then became interested in because you had this kind of base in the Hobbit?
I mean, certainly reading was a huge thing because, I got to get a sense of those worlds. And that was also, even like all the way through my teenage years, was something that, again, like continued to be shared with my mom. And even in this weird kind of tertiary way that I didn't realize till years after. my grandmother had passed that was actually being shared with my grandmother on her
Mhm.
side too, because a lot of the books that my mom was reading had got like my grandmother got them, then passed them along to my mom, then who passed them along to me, and so a lot of the horror stuff that I got into
Mhm.
was because my mom was reading Stephen King,
Right.
so I'm sitting around 10 years old, like that's she's reading this, she liked it. What the heck? I'll go ahead and pick it up when she was done. We did always have a rule that with her books, I wasn't allowed to take them until she finished them. Um, and that was very difficult sometimes, and I would still occasionally sneak through. I remember reading like just pieces of like whatever page she was on of it when she first got that, just because I needed to know. Like
Right.
she kept wanting to say stuff about it, and I needed to know what she was talking about. Um, and so, but then we, like, because we were both reading a lot of the same things, then we'd be able to have these great conversations about the stuff. Like as I was going through, I was like, "Holy shit!" when this happened, and um, just like some really, really cool experiences that helped continue to cement for me how much I love kind of diving into other people, these worlds that other people create,
Mhm.
and that had a huge impact on me. I've also realized the older I've gotten and the more I've gone back to that story that the big thing, and this is why I got really mad at the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies.
Mhm.
I did not make it
Oh yeah,
far
the
into
way
that.
yeah, that was
Uh,
an unfortunate thing.
that was, but the biggest thing, I mean, there's the bloat and all those things, but the biggest thing to me is that it seemed to make it very clear from the beginning that this was a big old hero story to him. And what really truly lodged in my head was that um, Bilbo was a hero,
But
but
kind of by accident.
he wasn't a dashing hero.
Right,
He
yeah.
wasn't good at those things.
Right.
He was a slob who wasn't that smart. Like he was kind of smart, but not that smart.
Right,
But
yeah.
he just but he did, like, he wasn't going to fight his way through stuff. He had to think his way through problems and figure out a way, even down to things like the giant trolls. They just kept them talking until the sun
Mhm.
came up, and then they turned to stone. There's no fight involved in that.
Right, yeah.
Winning against a dragon. He is the one that beat the dragon, but he didn't like fire a single thing. He didn't like he did the whole trying to go and like I'm gonna sneak and got foiled completely.
Right.
Um, but like none of it was
Well, even
that
in
version
the
of
riddling
heroism.
contest, what's in my
Yeah,
pocket? Like that wasn't intentional.
yeah,
It was just a thing that happened.
and that was like realizing that there are different ways of being good at things,
Yeah.
and that and feeling comfortable with the fact that I was never gonna be the like big muscle dude that's going out and like throwing haymakers and stuff like that. Like I'm gonna crush my enemies. Like that's not. First off, I don't feel that way, and I'm very much not good at violence. The first time I tried actually punching somebody with the intent of violence
Mhm.
was in the middle of a seventh grade class. I grabbed his shirt. I tried to do the whole movie thing, like grabbing him by the shirt, pulling him in, throwing in a punch. Um, then, like, immediately got picked up by the back of the neck, drug over to the principal's office. The other kid was in there. And worse than anything else, worse than any fear about my mom going after me, anything like that, was the knowledge that this kid sat there and said, "It's fine. It didn't really hurt." Like
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that point,
Yeah.
it
You
was
don't
really
want to
clear in
say,
my head.
yeah.
I'm not good at violence.
Right.
But there are things I can be good at.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna have to pause for just a second because there's a knock on my door person.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
While we wait, I have absolutely nothing planned to talk about, so I'm just going to sit here. I do know that, like, I have ADD and I'm highly medicated for it, but I imagine wherever this ends up being, you will find me playing with stuff a lot because it just gives my fingers something to do, which always helps me concentrate. Um,
I can understand that. Now I'm trying to move some things around because my dog decided that he wanted to be in
all
here,
right.
and that was what the issue was. So okay, but yeah, so that like that made a huge difference in
Hmm.
how I approach things in life, how I approach
Yeah,
problems, um, how and how I look at other people. Um, like that's been a huge impact on me.
right on. That's yeah, that's exactly. So what do you write horror, fairly extreme and bizarro type stuff. That's pretty accurate
It
for.
depends on my mood. It is I do pretty much entirely, or at least to me, everything I write feels like horror, but I'm also horrified pretty much all
Yeah,
the
it's
time.
weird because like I so my so I put this graphic novel out and it actually didn't get nominated for a Stoker for the graphic novel in the graphic novel category. And to me, it's a horror novel because it's about a big fucking red wolf that destroys everything, right? But I can also going back and thinking through it, I'm like, well, yeah, I guess it really isn't. And I've been thinking a lot about part of with your career, anybody's career in arts. It's like, man, like there are so many things I do that, like, in my opinion, this is what this is. But because I like lots of other things, it doesn't fit in this nice little category because that category by itself is fucking boring. Like it's all tropes, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's a really weird balance to strike with that. How do you feel that I guess some of these ideals from The Hobbit came in and then later maybe affected your writing or where you went into with your career if you feel that that is I mean, I would assume that based on what I know about it, in order to do what you do, you have to really give a shit because it I certainly couldn't do it and like because I just don't care. But you know, like I love teaching, and that's cool. But and that part I get. But there's so many things that I can't imagine trying to do it in the real world and in as real a way as you do it across the board. So that to me, that seems like the kind of thing that the inertia would have come from throughout your whole life, really kind of pushing you to being able to kind of go, okay, yeah, I can do this because I see, you know, these are the ideals that I've built up through this stuff.
Well, I think that, yeah, that's probably a good point to segue into that. So, first off, just for people that are paying attention to this, what I do for a living, I teach vocational studies currently, but I teach at a juvenile correctional facility, and so it's dealing with kids that have sometimes done very fucked up things. There's it's the facility that I work in, primarily they're felons, people that have been in gang life for long time periods, but also um, there is an entire section or an entire unit that is kids with sexual assault charges. And that's very it can be very difficult dealing with, especially in the SA unit. That was something that's a touchy spot for me, as I think it is with most people. Um,
Essay being such,
so the idea that like you showing empathy to somebody that has done horrible things,
right?
to some kids that don't in any way exhibit any empathy or don't seem like um, they care about the things that they've done or harm that they've caused can be really difficult. Now, also on the other end, a good amount of the kids in there are, most of them, to be honest, you wouldn't, by regular conversation with them, you wouldn't have any idea that they've done any of the things that
Mhm.
they've done. And some of them are in there for really stupid shit too, which that's a whole other fucking thing.
Right, of course.
But it's there's certainly a good amount of there's this weird balance of like having to have more empathy than I expected, but also having to have a lot less empathy than I expected. Like, and I don't mean like say like not caring at all about them, but
Maybe just
um,
speaking the reality of their situation. It's like,
yeah,
well, you did something, and this is what happened. And
yeah,
you know, there's only so much
you're
sympathy you're going to get when you knew what you did and you did it.
yeah. you're really sad right now because you're starting to come to terms with the
Right.
shit that you did, and that really like that fucking sucks. However, there is a part of me like, yeah, but you did that shit.
Right.
And so you should be sad. You should be upset with yourself. Suck it up, Buttercup. Move on. Do better with your life
How
in the
long have you been
future.
doing this?
So I've been doing this specific job for this is my third year, but prior to this, I taught English at a gen ed school.
Oh, wait.
I did that for about 3 years,
And what kind
and
of school?
just a gen ed, just general
Oh, general
education.
education. Okay.
Not this is
Oh, you
teaching
said
in our
Gen X, and I was like,
prisons.
whoa, that's a
Yeah,
whole other thing.
I mean most of the teachers were Gen X, so I guess. But as compared to like teaching in prisons is considered alternative ed. I sometimes forget that I'm just used to this lingo bits falling off of my face that are of no use to anyone else unless you work in these fields. But
Right.
so I did that for a couple of years or for 3 years, and even there at the school I was in, um, I had ninth graders and 12th graders, and they sent like I got pretty much all of the reprobates or ones that were that they didn't think were going to do as good. The school was trying to chase me out. What they didn't realize, and to be honest, I don't know if I realized it as much then, but those are my people.
Right. Yeah.
The people that hated being at school, I
Right.
fucking
Yeah.
hated being at school.
Yeah.
The people that didn't see a point and wouldn't just do it because you say you're supposed to do this
Yeah. It's like,
thing.
you'll give me a reason so I can understand
Yeah.
why you want me to do this. Yeah, absolutely.
And so those ones, like, you give me those, like, I'm great. The ones that want to start shit all the time, great. I love starting shit too. If everybody's just sitting in their chairs, I'm fucking bored. So
Right.
let's go, buddy. Let's see what you got on your let's see what you got in there. Let's see what's gonna happen. And so that like honestly, I loved the hell out of it. I really loved. I taught ESL like during that time period. I had ESL classes for two of each class that were primarily, um, they were kind of a bridge between students that came in that just didn't speak any English and like not quite ready to be in fully mainstreamed classes. And I loved the hell out of those kids too. Those were some people that like some of them were coming from real fucked up situations.
Mhm.
In my area, for some reason, we got a lot of people from Nepal and a lot of people from Guatemala. And if you know
You're in
about the shit
Ohio.
people, huh?
You're
Oh
in
yeah, I'm in
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that those two specific areas.
Mhm.
But if you know anything about Guatemala, these are people fleeing genocide.
Right.
Nepal, horrendous fucking living conditions for people there, and also dealing with dealing with kids that were trying to deal with the cultural situation here, but also trying to deal with the weird cultural situation they have at home because they'd have parents that would be um, sometimes not as open as the other parents of kids that they're used to.
Right.
And so you'd have girls that are, that you're having
Oh,
to call up their parents and fight with them over getting the kid to come into school because no, the fact that you need a babysitter 4 days a week does not give you an excuse to not send your kid to school.
right.
She needs to learn stuff. She wants to be a friggin' doctor.
Right.
Sorry, I have some things with that, but I really like interacting with those families, getting to know the kids, getting like that was really I enjoyed that a lot. And then even before then, I worked in special ed.
Right.
So I was and with like high needs ends. The rooms were like the ones that they put off in their own room.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was pretty regularly getting punched in the face, bit, stuff like
Mhm.
that, having to clean crap up off the walls and off of people that were twice my size. Um, but also knowing the whole time like they're having a meltdown right now. My only concern is keep them safe, keep the other people safe.
Right.
And then once it's done, they're going to be just etch a sketch perfectly fine in like a minute.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm still freaked out and angry, but I
Right.
can't be. So,
When I was a
uh,
kid, I got diagnosed with ADD really early on, before it was called anything, and I was put into a school for, it was a very small school, so there was me and then like a bunch of like way seriously autistic kids and some of them, and like I always just felt so bad for them because it's like they couldn't turn anything off, so it was just this full on onslaught on their senses all the time, so it's and then you're right, and then they would kind of get everything back under control and it was fine, almost like it hadn't happened before.
yeah.
So
And
yeah, and
it's,
you do have to temper your responses, not from just with there, but like when interacting with people with mental illness, it's the same sort of thing. It's just kind of like, okay, that wasn't your fault. That was chemistry, but the plate's still broken, So you have to kind of figure out how to respond.
yeah. And I was not prepared for how well that set me up with dealing with kids in, a correctional situation.
Yeah. So
Because
how does
also,
so
go ahead.
what's a typical day for you with that?
To be honest, day to day, it's really very like the day to day operations are calmer than any other school I've worked in.
That makes sense, I
People are
guess.
always surprised at that, but most of these kids have led really chaotic lives.
Hmm.
Most of them are not wanting to start shit. They
Right.
are just like they're finally, especially the kids that have led particularly rough lives. It's heartbreaking how many of them their safe place is being in prison, but it
Yeah.
is a safe place for them. And so those ones, like the ones that out on the street would be like tearing shit up all the time.
Right.
Um, they have people they can talk to, even like the ones that have like you know have issues with self control when they lose their temper and all that. There are things set into the system by, and it's not a weird thing. If somebody needs to step out for a little bit and breathe, or if they just need to like, what, today's not working for you, you want to go hang out in your room for today, go hang out in your room. That's all right.
I
Like
guess
that,
it's a
like
very long-term goal versus you
yeah.
have to do the thing.
And because it's set into the system and they know, and all they got to do is say to this person like, hey, I need my break, um, and they get their break. In a regular school situation, you got that same kid and they need their break, but you
Right.
also know that like somebody needs to monitor them just for general safety. You can't leave the classroom and there's nobody else
Right.
available to go out with them, so you can't give them the break they need. And there's like none of that infrastructure in to help take care of
Oh,
them.
of course, yeah.
It's usually a lot easier. Like, I mean, to be honest, the school day is like they start their classes at 9. First off, you come in at 7:30, classes don't start till 9. I get an hour and a half plan before the day starts. I have never had an hour and a half plan. That is astounding. Like I have the ability to actually get stuff together and be ready for my day. Kids come in at 9 o'clock. They go through. There's about 3 hours worth of classes before the break for lunch. Then they come back for an hour and a half, and then I have another hour at the end of the day for planning, so I can help get stuff like straightened up from the day and all of that. So the day is pretty regimented. I'm a little more chaotic than the other teachers because since I do vocational studies, it's based off of pullouts. I don't have a vocational class. Instead, I
Can you
have
explain what that is?
individual people with their own plan, and I'm pulling you out during this chunk of time. And I'm going to kind of like, okay, this is how you put together a resume. Now go do it and then bring it back to me. And like, we'll see what's right and what's wrong and kind of work out the stuff. You're trying to find a job. Okay. So this is how you go approach it. This is what you're going to want to look for. They're like, and it's all different plans for each individual one. So, um, like my day is a little messier than
Hmm.
everybody else's, but I like messy, so that's
Yeah,
fine
and
with
also,
me.
I mean, you're doing practical stuff, then it's always going to be kind of different, which is
Yeah, and
personally
I
engaging.
have the freedom. I've never had this. This is the first time I've had. I mean, teaching jobs you generally don't get much freedom in what you're teaching on it. I get to go to the when I start working with a student that needs something. I get to ask them what they need to know.
Hmm.
and or what they're wanting to know, what is important to them, and then build like with that person, build a plan for them based off of that. And that I work for somebody that like I am my immediate boss is very supportive of that approach because she knows all the kids that we work with have their own individual needs. They have their own struggles. They also have their own skills. They have things that they don't realize are assets.
Right.
And so, be having that freedom to flex around and be able to use the assets of those students
I
and
imagine
build
it's
stuff
very
around them.
rewarding when they start to realize that they have those assets and are able to see it, having gone through a lot of those kind of special ed classes myself and going through, you're like, oh, I can actually use this for that. It was always very exciting.
Yeah, the amount of kids that because they're all again most of the ones I work with struggle with school. We're all working with that, but yeah, when there is that moment, um, because I'm also I don't my approach to teaching is generally I put the thing in front of you, tell you okay, um, you want to do this like resume is a really good example. Here's a sample resume. Change the information around to yours. I just say that to them and then walk away.
Right.
But the key is not like because with the understanding you're gonna get it wrong the first time. But then we're gonna sit down. We're gonna talk through like these are the things you're gonna change. This is how you want to change it. This is why
Hmm.
you want to change it. Um, that's where the learning occurs.
Hmm.
And also, I get to see right away, like, I don't need to bother telling you this stuff because you already know it.
Right.
I don't have to waste your time with stuff you already know. And um, seeing them because regularly with students, then they'll struggle a lot when they're first given something. Um, but when it clicks into their head, especially when I sit back down with them and they see how many things they did right
Hmm.
without knowing
Right.
what to do with it, or without like having had experience with that, um, and they start to catch on that they are smarter than they think they are.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it's a really nice feeling. Um, Now there's the other end of it that's kind of tough to deal with. That you have them for set periods of time, and then the biggest, most important thing. And to be honest, I felt this way about teaching from the start, but it's more compact, and I think maybe a little bit more extreme in this specific environment. Is how important it is to let go of the students.
Right.
You can't, for your own mental health, you can't hold on to them.
Yeah.
And I know, we may have made a lot of progress over the time. We get kids that come in that are, in severe withdrawal. And so they're having to deal with that because they've been, self medicating to compensate for either depression issues or other like chemical issues that they're having, uh, or just because life fucking sucks. And they've gone through that, but then you're working through all this stuff with them. You're like they've gotten that stuff out of their system. They're looking hopeful. They're working towards things. They figured out ways to be able to make money in a positive fashion. They're looking at they're talking about all the things that they want to be able to do with their life and all that. And you know, the moment they leave, unfortunately, I'm not there anymore.
Right.
The positive support network that they have in this place isn't there anymore. They're back in the same neighborhood they lived in before. They're back with the same family. And I work in Hamilton, Ohio, which I didn't know till I started there, is where the guy that started the Bloods moved to when he got kicked out of California.
Huh.
When he got run out of there, that's where he moved. So there's a huge, I've got kids that lay out their family going back to the first Bloods coming over, like white people talking about their family coming
Mhm.
over on the Mayflower. So you got kids that are like their families are deep in that, and now they're going back to those same family members that very much were family members that are trying to do right by their kids. Like this is how I survive,
Mhm.
and so this is how you're going to survive. Um, you know, we don't get out of this area. We don't
Right.
go into construction and things like that. Those aren't jobs that we can have.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to own your own house or anything. So all you can do is deal on a street corner or whatever.
I
That's just
imagine there's a
that's
lot of
Yeah.
like,
And
even
so they
weird.
go. I know they're going to go back to that. I know that they're going to be around those same people, and I know that some of those people are going to be angry at the idea of optimism because optimism's
Right,
been beaten out of them. Because
right.
I grew up with those people also in my own family, um, and so
Commercial time. So for years, I have had people up my ass to do a tarot deck because a lot of the stuff that I do, I guess, reminded them of that. I've always been fascinated by the concept of apophenia, how you can use it. Apophenia is basically our brains are connection machines, right? And so you put a bunch of objects on a table and you tell people, hey, this all means something. Our brains will start going, oh yeah, of course it does, and put it all together. So once a friend of mine said, hey, you can sell those boutique tarot decks for like $60 a pop. I was like, hey, let's me do something like that. So I did a Kickstarter for it and was able to fund it. And so thus the Apophenia Tarot deck was born. Is this your card? And, I'm very clear with why it exists. I straight up say, I personally don't believe in this, but if you do and it works for you, then that's awesome. But because I thought that the tarot was such a cool way to explore the idea. That was a great example of it, and that's always available through our personal store, which is egolikeness.bigcartel.com. So you can get copies of that there. We have copies when we have shows. So yeah, check it out if you can, if you're into tarot or just you want 88 pieces of small art. And also, if the kid does better than you, which is ideally good, but it also kind of reflects on your sense of self, like, oh, well, you almost don't want the kid to do better because then that means that you could have done better if you had different circumstances, and nobody. That's a hard pill to swallow, I think, for some people.
yeah, yeah, that whole what you think you're so great.
Right, exactly.
You're now I see you're getting out of the hood because you're so great you can get out or whatever kind of or like a lot of the I deal just as much with inner city kids and also very rural
Yeah,
kids
it's very
and
rural around here, and there's a lot of that kind of this, oh, well, my kid went away to school. Yay, his first kid to go to school. Well, now he comes back and he doesn't want to run the farm. Now
yeah
they're, and so,
and it's there's some of that like how dare you get out of here um how dare you think that you're better than me and yeah it's and I know that the kids are going to go into that so
is the place you work do they stay there or for X amount of time or like live there or is it a place they go to every day?
So it is a like they are working under a sentence there. Well, okay, so weird thing with the place I'm at. They have two separate areas in there. One area is detention. That is kids that are waiting trial, or some of them are also ones that got a very short sentence. If you get a 30-day sentence or something, they're not going to send you into DYS, Department of Youth Services. That's the full like prison. Um, they're not going to bother. Generally speaking, judges try to keep kids out of there when they can because you just learn how to become a better criminal there.
Mm,
That's about it.
yeah, that
It
seems to
cements
be
stuff
a
further.
common assessment.
Um, that's where you start running into situations where like to survive in there you have to join a gang.
Right.
That's not a thing like regardless of how you feel about gangs either that or you're catching shit
From everybody.
constantly
Yeah.
for your sentence and then you're going to get additional sentences thrown on you for gang related activity while you're in there
Right.
because our system is just absolutely wonderful. So try to keep the kids out of there. So on the detention end, it's either they're in there for some of them are in there for a day, some of them are in there for 6 months. It has a lot of in and out. It's very
Mhm.
chaotic over there. So you're just kind of jumping on people and doing what you can. Then there's also a rehab facility, and that isn't, it's rehabilitation, not, I mean, rehab as far as drug rehab does also often come into play with it. But, but it's a, that is a 4.5 to 6.5 month program, depending on what they're in for, that is designed entirely year round. It's very therapeutic based. It's very like the whole idea of it is to try to break the cycle and deal with the root of wherever the problem came from. And really like get down in on that and try to like stop that from continuing to
Mhm.
be a problem. Which I don't know that I could work in a traditional prison environment if there wasn't something like that there, that I know like people that I'm working with buy into the idea that um, that first off, understand these are fucking kids, but also that people are redeemable. That people,
Right.
sometimes it's circumstances, sometimes it's fucking dumbass decisions, but either way, that people can be better. Um, and that, maybe they don't have anybody showing them ways to be able to be better. And maybe that's part of what they need. Um, if they're like, if it was just around the idea of punishment, I can't do that shit. That's not
No,
That's
of
not what
course.
I believe in.
Well, it seems like
If
you've
the
got a
only goal of prison is to punish people, then you might as well just shoot them in the head when they walk in the door. Otherwise, like it should be about like fix whatever problems were causing,
yeah.
going on, trying to fix those and trying to get them to a point where they can come back into the rest of society and be reasonable and live a decent life for themselves.
Right. It seems like you've got maybe not for the system as a whole, but you seem to have an appreciation for how things work within your portion of it. Like you seem to understand it, and it seems to be at least working, for you to be able to stick with it, to feel like you're not up against some wall where you're you know, just going through the motions of doing it. Do you have any like particularly success stories for yourself that you feel
Um,
like
I
people?
don't know about any, and that's one of the weird things with this job. Also, one of the weird things that comes with like, just like everybody else, I gotta show that I'm doing a good job to keep my job.
Of course.
But most vocational teachers, what they do, like how you show that that you're doing a good job, is being able to show like job placement success that students have after they've left you, things like that. I have no contact. We have actually specific rules that we cannot outside of like incidental contact. If I'm
Right.
in a neighborhood and they're walking by, but like I can't be like stopping by somebody's house and checking to see how
Right.
Johnny's doing.
Right.
Um, so there isn't that kind of follow up. There isn't the ability for me to do job placement. So I
Mhm.
honestly, after your 6.5 months, um, I can say things like, I we worked out with a local organization that I'm getting kids their OSHA 10 cards, which helps them get a better job right out the gate, in factory work, warehouse work. I apparently found out that's something that you need for kitchens. I didn't know that. So we had
Hmm.
a kid that was doing kitchen work come through, and he needed his OSHA 10 card.
Like
But
cooking?
like, so I've been able to do some of those things, help connect people with getting some certifications and some training towards things. So I know those concrete things have occurred.
Hmm.
I know that that we have had. Uh, I know that we've had a good amount of kids graduate that are the kids that come in saying there's no way they're gonna do it. They've got too much they've got to get taken care of. All that there's no way they're gonna get it done, and we drag them kicking and screaming across that line. But the
Hmm.
look on their fucking face once we get across the line is
Right.
great because
Yeah.
well, the most we can do, unfortunately, is like a Zoom call with their parents. But all of a sudden, like the same person that was straight thugging a moment before, and it's just big old tough country boy, not gonna mess with anything like that. Mama's on the phone, and all of a sudden they got that big old smile on their face, and they just, it's like everything drops away from that, and those moments are absolutely great,
Hmm.
um, and help you hold on. Um, but I don't know if there's, I don't know what lasting success is
Right.
on it. But that's also not my job. That's the
Right.
kid's job. My job is while you're here, while I got you, make sure you got a safe place, make
Mm,
sure that you have access to things that you need, and that you know that that there are opportunities for a future for you. And
right.
also knowing people are fucking stupid when they're young.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was fucking stupid when I was young. My sister did a lot of fucking around, like much higher level than me. To be honest, she probably would have been one of my kids now. I'm 100% certain she would have been. But, and she didn't really even out till she was in her 30s. But at the same time, she is a great fucking mom. She takes real good care of her kids.
Hmm.
She takes very good care of her other people around her. She does a lot for her community. Like, she is like, we disagree a lot, and I get very angry at her a good amount of times. But she's a good person. It just took a fucking while for that shit to click in.
Hmm.
My only hope is maybe I'm putting something out there that in 10 years makes a difference. And then great. In 10 years, maybe things will be better.
Right. Right. Well, no, I mean, I think that that's I think that's the goal with anything that when you're trying to actively, there's the satisfaction of doing the thing, and then there's the hope that maybe somehow it will matter, beyond just the time that you're working in, and obviously you're getting enough out of it that you're sticking with it and you're still enjoying it, and it still feeds that desire to affect change. Um, do you see yourself sticking with this? Is there something you'd like to go into doing more of, or would you rather just write full time?
I definitely never wanted to write full time. I like writing, and I want to continue liking to write. And I know that like anything, when it becomes your job, you start having to make those decisions about like there's the thing that you do because you want to do it,
Hmm.
and then there are also like some decisions you got to make because like, well, if I do it this way it'll be more satisfying for me, but nobody will fucking buy it and I won't get paid. Or I can do this thing. And
Hmm.
I mean, if you're operating and like, if things fall just right for you, you can do the thing you want to do and it happens to be what people want. Good for you. I don't want to have to worry about that shit. I
Yeah,
really
no, I
like
think
the
that's very
fact that
reasonable.
my bills are paid.
Hmm.
So if I decide that what I want to do right now is write a story about somebody blowing a fucking mummy, I can do that. And if I make money from it, great. And if I don't fucking care.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
my bills are already paid. That's like it's fine. Like I enjoyed myself doing that, and like that I really like that end. I currently right now I cannot picture doing anything different than what I'm doing right now. But
Hmm.
also go back 3 years, I couldn't have pictured anything other than being a regular high school English teacher.
Right.
Going back before that, when I was in paraprofessional working in special ed, I was very heavily like, looking into what I need to do to switch over and have a certification to teach that because I couldn't picture anything different. So who the hell knows?
How did you
Um,
get into doing this? How did you end up going from just teaching in the regular system to this? Was it just a job opening? And
so I got run out of the school that I was at. Probably, to be honest, the only reason I made it through that first year and they didn't get rid of me as soon as they could. They only hired me on the full time position as a teacher because they had had two people in 2 years in a row quit that position mid year. And they didn't want to have to put up another thing saying, hey, we're so sucky that people keep leaving us. So they just asked me since I was already there to take it over. But then COVID hit. And so COVID saved my job that first year. And the second year of COVID, things were just so shitty. Teachers were leaving left and right. So I was safe then. But then by the third year, things had settled down enough that
Mhm.
they were pretty comfortable in running me. So they ran me out the door. And because I had been run out, um, I had a really tough time finding a job. Also, English teaching is really competitive. a single job will open up and 80 people will apply for
Right.
it. So, but then I'm pretty certain that, like, just because you put into these general systems consortiums of teacher things, I'm pretty certain that they contacted me.
Hmm.
It may have been the other way around. I don't remember. Um, but either way, like, got a call about an interview with the job, and it's like, this would be at working at a prison. And I was like, okay, well, no, I think I did apply because they were looking for an English teacher. But then when they called me for the interview, the English teacher position had already been filled, but they needed a general education teacher.
Hmm.
And so I was like, well, sure. Like, I'll interview for that. Like, I don't even know what that means, but let's find out. Then I got in for the interview, and after saying hello, they were also like, so that general education teacher position has also been filled, but we need a vocational teacher. And by that point in time, I was in such a whirlwind. I was like, I mean,
Amy.
sure, but I have no qualifications for that, right?
Hmm.
I What would I even be doing? And their response was, we don't know either, but if you're willing to find out, let's have a talk. And um, like this, obviously, yeah,
Hmm.
that's interesting. I've never had somebody say that to me in an interview.
Right, right.
Um, and I think it also helped that they knew what they were doing. They had the interview at, even though the place that runs the education, their home office is not in the prison. Um, so we could have had the interview in their home office. They had it at the facility because I know what they were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
They wanted to see how I react when I
Right,
gave.
right. That makes sense.
They wanted to see if I like tensed out or freaked out or anything like that. Like, so like I was walking around. Some of the students were around there, said hi to them when I had the chance, things like that. Um, and mostly that I think that, and the fact that I was so confused with the whole, like, what job I'm going for, and like why are you asking me about hiring me for a job I have no qualifications for, um thing, that I didn't care. And I had been told from like one of my earliest friends in teaching that that's how, like, she went into her interview for the first job she got assuming she wasn't going to get the job, so she just let the full trailer park girl out of the box and came right at it, and they hired her because she was good at her job.
Well, that's, as it should be.
It's But yeah, I had um, no intention of doing this. But that was also with special ed. That was the same thing. I
Mhm.
got sub jobs, and it
Right,
just happened that a lot of those sub jobs happened to be in special ed departments. And the schools that I worked at figured out pretty quickly that I didn't freak out
right.
when I was working with the kids. I treated them like people. If they
Hmm.
were being an asshole, like, yeah, okay, you can't call them an asshole, but
Right,
in teacher speak, I'd call them an asshole, and deal with the situation, but wouldn't freak out and wouldn't, like, yeah, you act a little weird, whatever. I'm weird too. Let's be weird together.
right, right.
And then I started getting put in those classes so regularly, they finally were just like, can we just hire you on to work at this department?
Right.
None of this was like, I went to school to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to do that. Not a damn thing since then has gone in any way according to plan.
Right.
Um, but
But
I
honestly, I mean, I
loved
think
it.
that's good. It shows that you're flexible and you're confident in your abilities, and you know, I don't know. Everything I've ever learned over the years is when the opportunity comes up, even if it's not something you're 100% on, you say yes, and sometimes you end up getting to do some really cool stuff because of that. So,
Yeah, I really like. Yeah, I never thought about it that way because most of the times I've said yes, it's been just entirely driven by the fact, like, I got bills to pay. You need me to do a thing, as long as you're paying me, let's
hmm,
go.
yeah,
But because I've had that attitude, well, shit. No, I'm really, because that's also what I tell the kids all the time is like, be willing to try shit out because you never know what'll work.
hmm.
But I didn't, till you said that, I didn't realize, yeah, how much that's been
When a bunch of
a
dwarfs show up
part
at your
of.
house, sometimes it's worth going, yeah, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Mm,
And if you're gonna go anyways, let's fucking go.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it completely if we're gonna do it at all.
Yeah. Absolutely. I my one of the labels I'm on, cop, uh, when Christian, the guy who runs it, and I were initially talking about it, he was like, I don't sign bands, I sign people. And that's exactly how I've always operated, where it's just like, look, I trust that you know what you're doing and you personally are motivated. Let's, make something happen. I brought a guy into our band once years ago because every time I ran into him, he would tell me about some interesting thing that he was doing. And I was like, all right, well, here, you want to, I don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but sure, what the hell, And so I think that I always kind of try and explain to people, it's like, there's no making it, but sometimes you can get into the next room. And from that next room, you can look through the doors and kind of, you start to realize where opportunities are that you might not have recognized before. And so as you start to recognize those opportunities, it allows you to kind of go, oh, you know what, I could segue this to that, and it would work. Or at least you start to feel more confident in your abilities to kind of go, yeah, okay, sure, let me give it a shot. Here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not good at. Let's make it work. So, and it sounds like you, in addition to just the needing to have a job portion of it, obviously you're going to have to go in some knowing that you know how to teach, you know how to teach. So it's just then you just need to know what the curriculum is in order to do it. And I think that's great. I think it's really cool that you uh, took it and ran with it.
And that's well, and like and walking into this situation, like knowing that there isn't a curriculum and what the hell that means
Well,
uh,
sure, but
was that
even
was
then, you
really
still know
intimidating.
how to teach once you nail it
Yeah.
down.
And
And,
then it was just a matter of like, well, yeah, and accepting that like I don't know what I'm doing, but I've always been really good at using the fact that I don't know what I'm doing
Mhm.
and just being straightforward on that.
Yeah,
That like the kids really appreciate that. Like, that it's just how often most of my life, that's and again another great thing I'll say about my mom. My mom never pretended to have her shit together.
right.
Like she was figuring stuff out as she went along,
Mhm.
and she never acted like it was anything different.
Mhm.
Um, and so she's always helped me feel comfortable with the fact that I don't know and I don't have to pretend.
Right.
And just how rare it can be for grown ass people to just be a grown ass person and admit,
Yeah. Yeah. I
uh,
had a gig come up a while back and I got it really, really fast. And so there was no like resume stuff back and forth. And so at one point I wrote her and I was like, okay, here's all the things I'm good at. Here's stuff that I'm okay at and can learn more about. And here are the things that if you need me to do them, you should probably find somebody else. So it's like these are but I'm really good at problem solving. So we can make something work if it's these top two here and we're good. And people, real humans that like actually want to get things done and operate in the real world seem to get that, which is uh which is always cool. And the people that don't get that, you probably don't want to be working with anyway.
that's one of the biggest disappointments that I had going into education because my mom grew up in the like yeah I grew up watching the corporate world. She was working for GE for years, got completely screwed over by them, like everybody does by all of them. But yeah, I saw that world. I saw all the backbiting, all the like pretending like all of our bosses all pretended they knew what was going on when not damn one of them knew anything. They were just depending on other people to do the stuff for them.
Right.
Yeah, and like I didn't want to be a part of that at all. So like I'll go into education. It'll be different. Yeah, no, public service is not any different. It's the same kind of crap, but just like in when you're working in businesses, you can find like you found people to work with in a label that look at you the way that you need to uh,
Sure.
be looked at and trust you the way that you need to be trusted. Yeah, you spend enough time poking around, you find those people, and yeah, then you can kind of like settle into those spaces and get something worthwhile be able to get something done.
Yeah.
Uh, like I will never stop singing the praises of both my current boss and my current administrator and the woman that hired me along with my immediate boss initially, that she retired like the year after she hired me. But both of them, first off, care so much about what they do and very clearly, to the point where they're willing to admit when they don't know,
That's awesome.
um, because they know that if they try to pretend that they know the thing that they don't know, it's just going to cause bigger problems. Um, and that aspect in itself, and the fact that then they're willing to be like, I don't know about this thing, but you know about this thing, so I'm just going to trust that whatever you're saying is right
Yeah.
on here, and I'm going to let you do your job that you know how to do.
Yeah.
Like it really, like when you find those people, it is so damn great.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Is there anything that's currently really, I mean, driving you or invigorating you? Can be anything really, like something
Um,
really enjoying and
I don't know if I'm enjoying it right now. Right now, the constant and oppressive terror and fear
no,
is
yeah,
driving me really heavily. But
sure.
it's honestly, like many people, like I've lived through my screwed up stuff. This is this is nowhere new to me. It's more frustrating that friends of mine are being affected by it and people that I
Mhm.
care about are.
Yeah,
But that's also really, really pushing me to try to do as much with it as I can, and to try to keep, like, just like with the kids I deal with, keeping a long view in mind, not just a short view.
mm,
Um, because yeah, otherwise it's real easy to get like beat down. Like, well, I did the thing and nothing's changed, so I should just stop doing things. Like,
that's why part of why I'm doing this actually is because I
yeah,
think that the passion and the things that getting excited about stuff it's communicable and it's infectious and that matters. I think when people are, if nothing else, it's a distraction. It's something to recognize in other people, and so yeah, it's bad times.
yeah. But there is, I am like, the yourself included, as well as I know so many people that work in various shades of art that are doing amazing things right now, because, and I know they're doing it because it's the only thing they have. It's the only thing they can do. But they're out there like putting out some amazing shit, and they're connecting with other people to show that there's, whether it's showing their anger, whether it's pushing through that and trying to show hope. The amount of people that I know that are working and just making horny monster smut. But you know what? Sometimes you just need to crank one out to some horny monster smut to get through the day, and you're doing the Lord's work, my friends. Like, it's there's such wonderful stuff that people are doing to go along. People in my community that I'm seeing there are just doing what they can to help pick up the other people around them and hold on to them, because we're all fucking scared.
Right.
Um, but we're reminding ourselves that we are here together, and it does help. Like, when I get together with those people and see, like, yeah, it helps remind that we can be bigger than this.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
we all as individuals, at least within most of the groups that we move in, recognize, the necessity of the diversity and all and celebrate all the differences between all of us as opposed to trying to clamp them down, and I think that's just unbelievably important. It's always been important, but it's just crazy to me now that how much that it's something we have to focus on.
yeah, but I am getting a lot of inspiration from that. And a lot, just both, just I, sure for work wise, but also art wise on myself. Um, that like and I'm wanting to do things with other people more. And it's hard to like not be like stuck inside yourself doing any kind of art. But yeah, I'm really feeling that like connection with other people right
Oh,
now. And so maybe if that's as horrible as all this shit is, if there's something good coming out of it, of um, people kind of remembering how important it is to hold on to each
mhm.
other. I get at least there's a thing,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's
something
better
bright.
than, if you give in to all of it, then they win, and it's certainly okay to be upset and morose and dark about all of it. I mean, it's a very reasonable response. And, I just wrote this record that's really, really not happy. But, I was talking to somebody else about that, and they were like, well, maybe that's what people need to talk about right now, and
Yeah,
it's not even addressing anything in the real world, but it's just a very melancholy record. And, yeah, you just, I don't know. I just tend to think that it's kind of all I got, really. Like it's all I know how to do. And for myself, like I've written 3 records in as many months, 4 records in 5 months, because it gives me something that I can go back to that is not me doom scrolling or thinking about everything that's happening. It's like these nice little closed in worlds that I can live in while I'm working on, and then put them out, and hopefully somehow they will matter to people beyond that. Um, so I think that's, I don't know what else to do. Like I did the whole screaming from stages thing for the last 8 years, trying to change people's minds, and you know, there was never a chance it was going to do enough, but it was something. And so now I'm kind of like, well, okay, this is what I got. I think for all of us, it's just you look at what you got, and I think that just by the nature of making stuff and doing what you do for a living, that's great. I mean, and being aware of trying to change things, or at least not change things, maybe mitigate the damage some. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being part of this. Is there anything that you put out recently that you want to plug or?
I do have a short story collection that just came out not too long ago from Bludgeon Girls Press. It's Prolonged Torments. It's a really long title, and I don't remember the rest of it. But if you look up Prolonged Torments, Anton Cancre, you'll find it.
I made
Betty
this thing.
Rocksteady did this marvelous little cute gloppy dude for the cover of it that I love. It does have the mummy blowing story in there, as well as a bunch of other very angry things
I
and
think you
sad
read that
things. And
when we came through. Actually, now that I think about it.
yeah, I do really enjoy reading that to crowds because um, there are reactions, and I like reactions.
Oh yeah.
Um, so it's the next step would be to have somebody in a mummy costume just wandering around fingering people, but I feel like that might be a little too intrusive,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's
so
kind of.
probably should not like, unless like maybe just like pay a couple, like some people that are willing to be there as performers, do that instead. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and does it count as necrophilia? And
It's
so that's one of those. If two mummies are going at it, is it still necrophilia? Is it still illegal?
it's yeah,
Um,
that's that is an interesting thing. If even if, like a mummy with a live person, if the mummy's the one that instigates it,
right. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how do you deal
That
with that
counts. I
stuff?
mean, what is the
Um,
what's the opposite of necrophilia? I don't even know what you would call that. So yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I mean, because really, I mean, you can call it necrophilia, but also it's just an object at that point. So I mean,
yeah.
that too. It's like the guy who fucked the park bench. So yeah, and then
And
call the police.
the park bench was the one that came on to him first too. So
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. And look at how he was stressed. So right on. Well, thank you. And
but yeah,
we haven't announced it yet, but we're going to be going through Ohio in a couple months. So we'll be on.
yeah.
And Spencer just set it all up. So,
Okay, yeah, Spencer is such a nice dude.
oh no, he's had.
I'm I'm really glad. Um, I'm really glad that I've gotten to know him.
Hmm.
So good. I'm excited about that. I get to
Yeah,
see
man.
you guys again. I'm glad that then I'm assuming that you're doing better. That makes
I
me
can,
happy
yeah,
to know.
yeah. So yeah, everything seems to be under control again. I for a while there, for people who don't know about this, I had a herniated disc, and I literally just lay in bed for 3 weeks. But I wrote a really cool record during the whole thing, so that worked out. But yeah, that sucks. I don't recommend it. But I think I'm up and about, and I didn't have to get surgery, so hopefully we'll see how bouncing around with the guitar goes with that. But
Yeah, don't wreck yourself too bad.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, aging is stupid. So
it is. Our bodies are complete and total bullshit. I was told by now my brain would just get put into a
right,
machine
Kurzweil, man, I'm just he's
and
off the ball.
fucking yeah. Everybody else talks about hover cars. I don't give a shit about hover cars. I want my mechanical body. I want my monofilament whips that I can pull out of my fingernail.
Yeah, but then
I
you get
want
into the whole like Star Trek transporter problem. Like is it actually transferring you, or is it just making a copy and it's killing the original? So like I think that's
I'm
the
okay with that.
well,
That's the
yeah,
idea that they're just constantly killing themselves over and over again. Um, does kind of amuse me. Uh,
yes, but that's fiction. Doing it to
yes,
yourself is the question.
that's yes, not
And how
yeah.
many times
Actual
before you start
people,
getting weird things that happen?
yeah.
So, all right, right on. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate this.
Thank you for doing this, Stephen.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad to. It's exciting to me.